Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to The Onion Peel. Today's episode is the second part to my story. Again, I'm going to be discussing some difficult topics, so I want to issue this as a content warning. We are going to be talking about suicide, death, depression. So if these topics are difficult for you or could be possible triggers, please listen accordingly. If this isn't the episode for you, hey, no problem. Just come on back next time. As we go forward, there were some parts of this episode as I was recording that I got pretty emotional. And I thought about editing them out, but then I didn't. Because in the spirit of being authentic, which is what The Onion Peel is about, I decided to leave them in. So there might be a few parts here and there that aren't perfect audio, but they certainly are perfect reality. So I hope you enjoy, and let's do this. Welcome to The Onion Peel, a show where we get real, raw, and honest about life. It's a space where authenticity lives and hope resides. The Onion Peel is a place where we peel back the layers of our stories and discover the unexpected flavoring that each one brings. Hey guys, I'm your host and semi-crazy Christian, Angela McConnell. I'm a middle-aged mom of 5 with a dead husband, and I've been through some shit in my life. Now, I'm on a mission to bring hope to the world. So join me as we journey through this onion and find hope in the tears. You ready to peel this thing? Hey guys, welcome to The Onion Peel. This is episode 3, part 2 to my story of the day that my husband passed away. As we left off last episode, I was basically in a puddle on my kitchen floor in the fetal position with gut-wrenching grief. Crying, sobbing, shaking, all the good stuff. As the next day dawned, I was in a state of feeling completely out of my body, which is a very common expression when people go through a tragedy. You feel extremely disconnected to your body because you can't believe that your life has changed so drastically in one breath. But it had. And I knew that it had, but I couldn't accept it. It was a rough day. I remember at one point of the day, and this was after, family had arrived back over, there was a moment that I went to a place of, I'm dying right now. So that's a place of panic, anxiety, all that stuff. But it was a place that I knew for sure that I was dying. Right at that moment, I was dying. And I remember running to the bathroom, and this was on the main level of the house, so it would have been the main level bathroom. And I remember running into that bathroom, just gut-wrenchingly screaming my head over the toilet because, you get nauseated with this kind of grief. You get very sick to your stomach and you end up vomiting. It was such an ugly moment of wrenching, vomit, screaming, sobbing, crying, all in one moment, all in one action. And it was just one of those times that I remember I had family members come into the bathroom and just tell me that I had to stop because I couldn't let the kids see that. And I remember thinking, I don't really care right now who sees me. I'm dying. I don't understand how you don't see that I am dying. So I'm going to do what I need to do because I'm dying. I don't care about being a perfect mom right now, or whether I'm like embarrassing anyone or if I'm scaring anybody. I mean, that was not my intent. Of course, I didn't want to scare my children. Of course not. But to expect me to be in a place where I'm going to logically be able to stop myself from feeling something, to have that kind of willpower, there was no way. And so I just will never forget that moment in time. It just sticks with me so clearly. I don't know how the rest of that day actually played out. I remember that everybody wanted me to eat. You got to eat, Ange. You got to keep your energy up. You have to. I'm thinking, eat? I don't want to eat. Who cares about eating right now? But again, I go back to that same thing with what happened with the refrigerator. That it's not about, Ange, you got to eat, or you're not going to have any energy to function whatsoever. Come on. Everybody logically knew that's not the case. You can go for days without food. Shoot. Probably go weeks. It was about the fact that if you could solve a problem, which is Ange hasn't eaten a thing in a day and a half. If you can solve that problem, then maybe some of the pain will go away. So I remember that very vividly. I remember everyone very seriously trying to figure out financially where I was at. I couldn't even think of that at that moment. I knew that I was probably going to have to be out of my house very shortly. That was too much. That was absolutely too much for me to think about. So the next day came, and that would have been, I believe, Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we had the private showing. And as I said earlier in episode 2, my husband's family is very large, so I knew that there was going to still be a lot of people there. We had decided that we were going to all wear our Lions jerseys or colors to the funeral home in respect for my husband. Don was a huge Detroit Lions fan. I mean, monster big Detroit Lions fan. I know. Crazy. We all know it. Everybody used to give him a hard time about it, but he didn't care. He's loved them since he was a little boy, and he was a true fan. And let me tell you, every year was going to be the year that they were going to get it together and have a really good chance, at least at the playoffs. So the Detroit Lions are very sentimental, and they mean a lot to us as a family because of my husband. So because of that, we decided going to the funeral home that we were going to all dress in Lions gear in honor of my husband. And so we did. And it was great. It was wonderful. It was sort of like when we all showed up at the funeral home and we had on our Lions gear, that it was an unspoken love. We didn't need to say anything. It was just this special thing we were doing because we loved Don, and we knew that he would have so appreciated us showing up to the funeral home in Lions gear. So the funeral home was an interesting day for me. And I had a moment where when we got to the funeral home, I was allowed to be the first one in to see him in the casket. It was an open casket. And the particular room that we had was a very large room. And there were 2 sets of doors in the front and in the back of the room. So I walked in the back of the room. And I remember thinking, phew, this is going to be rough. But I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen him since he was alive. I was going in by myself without the kids. Just for a couple minutes. That's all. I was just going to go in for a couple minutes first so I could sort of prepare myself for then when the kids came in. So I went in the back doors. I had my mom and my dad with me on either side of me. And we walked in, and he was in the casket that was at the other end of the room. And the second I saw him, I just wanted to run to him. And I had my mom holding one arm and my dad holding the other. And they wouldn't let me go. And I remember squirming, like wiggling my arms to get free from them because I wanted to go. I want to go see Don. I wanted to get to him as fast as I could. And I finally got my arms free from them. And man, I'm telling you what, I sprinted to that casket. And I think I must have scared the living jeepers out of my mom and dad because I think that they thought I was going to jump in. And as soon as I got to the casket, I just was like, oh, honey. So happy to see him. Yeah, I know he wasn't alive. I understand that. But I just needed to see him. I've thought many times about that moment. And that feeling that my parents were holding me back and they wouldn't let me go. And I don't know if it was out of fear that they thought I was going to jump in the casket. But even if I was going to jump in the casket, who cares? Who cares? Does it really matter? I mean, what if I wanted to grab a blanket and just lay in there with him? Does that matter? Am I trying to impress somebody? Is somebody going to tell me that I'm crazy because I did that? Look, we're all a little crazy, okay? And if there's one thing I've learned about grief, you just have to do what you have to do. And you can't worry about anything or anyone. What they're going to think, say, feel, doesn't matter. They're not in your shoes. They don't know. But it was okay that I wanted to see him. It was okay that I couldn't wait to get to him. And once I saw him there, it was like I could just breathe for a quick little second, and I was able to get my bearings. I was only in there for a couple minutes alone, and then we brought my kids in. And it was just the kids and me. I think at that point my mom and dad actually left, and it was literally just the kids and me. I apologize. It was just a very difficult moment to have to be with my children as they're looking at their father. As they're looking at their father in a casket. We had brought a can of Diet Coke because he loved his Diet Coke. And some hot tamales because my husband loved hot tamales. He had hot tamales everywhere. He would have them stashed literally in dresser drawers. They'd be in secret cupboards in the kitchen. He'd always have a box in his truck. I mean, they were everywhere. Hot tamales were just his thing. So we put a can of Coke in with him, kind of by his hands, and we put the box of hot tamales in there, and we put his Bible in there. So that was all right with him in the casket. I don't know, is that weird? Doesn't really matter. We just did. Made us feel good. Made us feel like we were doing something for him. And we left it there. So after the kids and I had our time with him, then the rest of the family came in, and there is something to say about going to a showing. It does fill you up having people around to share in that moment that just all loved Don. It is very beautiful when you have that many people around who loved your person. So after the funeral home the next day, I remember was a rainy kind of a day. Just rainy, not storming, just rainy. And I believe that was the day that everybody gathered the kids together and they went out and they got their funeral clothes. And for whatever reason, I was left in the house by myself for a couple hours. And it was in the afternoon. I remember it very well. And it was surreal to me. And it was extremely peaceful. And it was a very beautiful moment. I was still feeling in shock. I was dying inside. But I was able, once again, to take a breath. It was a small one, but it was there. It was peace for me to have everybody out of the house for a second. It's nothing against anybody. I just needed to have a moment of quiet. I didn't realize I needed to have a moment of quiet, but when it presented itself, it was absolutely incredible. I cannot describe it to you, but it was incredible. And it was one of those moments again that I knew that hope was there. I couldn't necessarily connect to it because it was a way down deep feeling. But I very specifically remember that I felt this ability to have my lungs filled up and be able to just sit in one little second of peace. And it was the fact that the rain was pitter-pattering down. It wasn't sunny out. It wasn't gloomy, though. It wasn't that kind of a rainy day. It wasn't a gloomy rainy day. It was a cozy rainy day. They were my favorite kind. Always. They still are. And it was quiet, and I could hear the rain. And I don't think at the actual time I knew what my thought was. It wasn't until much later, when I was able to process so much of all of this, that I remember feeling like things were going to be okay. Again, I didn't go, oh, everything's going to be okay. It wasn't that. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that for 1 second, I had this little baby moment of peace. And I know now that looking back, that what I was feeling and what I was knowing was that it was going to be okay. That somehow I was going to get through this. That somehow I was going to be able to get the kids through this. It was such a magnificent moment. Absolutely magnificent. So the next day was Friday. That was the day of the memorial. And again, I remember brushing my teeth. Apparently brushing my teeth is a theme. And I remember brushing my teeth and thinking, I'm burying my husband today. I'm 44 years old and I'm burying my husband today. How is this possible? So, got myself together and, you're just looking in the mirror thinking, I'm blow drying my hair for my husband's funeral. It's crazy. So I got myself together, went in the closet, tried to figure out what I was going to wear to say goodbye to my husband, and went downstairs. Everyone just had a solemn look on their face. It was such a... I'm sorry. It was such a serious moment. I walked out of the house. I got in the car. And I remember my mom saying to me, here, and she had a Xanax in her hand. Now, I hadn't taken anything up until this point. I don't really know why I had or I hadn't. I just hadn't. So when I got in the car and she handed me over the pill, I looked at it for a second and I just said, no, Mom, I'm not taking that. God is either going to get me through this today or he's not. And that was the first moment that I challenged God. I didn't even say it out of faith. It wasn't what it was. I said it out of challenging him, out of telling him, he better show up. Damn it, he better show up. Because this right here is a bunch of bullshit that I'm having to go through. I'm not taking a pill. Nope, not doing that. And again, it didn't have anything to do with the Xanax. If you take them, go for it. That's not what I'm saying. What it signified in this moment was that I made a choice. I made a choice in that moment. And the choice was this. I'm giving God a chance. So you better show up, Lord. You better show up, God. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to sit right here and I'm going to wait for you to show your face. So you better get me through this. And that was my challenge. And that, my friends, was the beginning of so many challenges to God over these last few years. And please know that I've always been a Christian. I've never not been a believer. But what I went through with my husband's death changed everything for me with my relationship with God. Everything. Because now this shit was getting real. It was getting real. And I didn't care if I was disrespectful to him. I didn't care if it was like, oh my gosh, you can't say that. Are you kidding? You can't say that to God. You can't challenge him like that. What are you doing? Oh, no. That's not how I rolled. That moment, the day of my husband's memorial, the day that I had to put Don to rest, that was the day. That was the day that I went, all right, God, you're going to allow this to come into my life? You know, you could have come up with a miracle. You could have. I mean, you do miracles all the time. You could have come up with a miracle somehow, some way, but you didn't. So, if that's the case, and I'm sitting here, then you better show up. That's all I'm saying. You better show up. So, like I said, that's what I said to my mom. Nope, I'm not taking that. God's going to either get me through this or he's not. And she just said, okay, and slithered back in her seat because she could tell that I was making a statement. And we then proceeded to our church and went to the funeral. It was an absolutely wonderful funeral service. Absolutely beautiful. It was so personal. There were so many people that showed up. I think my husband had, I don't know, there was somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people that came to the service. That's quite a testament to who my husband was. And I can't tell you how incredibly blessed I felt and how overwhelmed I was to see so many people there supporting him and to supporting us. And please remember, I never put this in the paper. I never announced when his memorial was going to be. Nothing. So all those people showed up out of word of mouth. Now, granted, I understand that word travels fast, but to have that many people show up out of word of mouth, that's huge. And I can't even begin to tell you how much that meant to me and to my kids to just be surrounded by so many people that loved him and loved us. And if that's not hope, then I don't know what is. There are always blessings. There are always amazing things that show up in the most dire times. Sometimes it's just somebody saying, you know what? I'm just going to be here with you. They can't fix anything. They can't say anything to make it better. They can't take the pain away. They can just be there with you in that moment. So, that was that. My husband was now officially buried. I went home. I remember feeling relieved that it was over because there's so much anticipation going into the fact that, oh my gosh, I'm going to my husband's funeral. And you don't know how you're going to be and you don't know how you're going to handle it. So to have it turn out the way it did and then to be able to come home, it was just very relieving. And I, once again, felt like I could take a small breath just because I had gotten through it. There's so much more to my story, just like there's so much more to all of our stories. We all have such incredible stories, every one of us. And I want to share a lot of my story. And I want to talk about things in my story. And I want to share so many realizations that I had, so many things that I learned. Because we all just need to know that there's somebody out there that kind of understands. We all need examples of someone that's gone through something, whether it's similar or not, just that it's the fact that you even know somebody that just has gone through pain. And how did they get through it? And how are they happy? How does that make any sense? They must be crazy. They have to be crazy. Well, like I said earlier, we're all a little cray-cray. So I hope that you'll listen in as we go forward. And I hope you'll tune in next episode. I'm going to try to be dropping these once a week. I'm not sure what day of the week that's going to be. That's my plan. I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to share some of my story with you. I know these first couple episodes have been pretty heavy, and I debated on whether I should start with them, but in the end, I decided that it was important for me to share myself with you. It was important to be authentic. It's important to tell our stories because our stories matter, and maybe my story can help your story. Because what I've learned is that those layers that we peel back off the onion, they make everything taste richer. They make life better. I just want to leave you with this today. If you can take anything away from my story, it's that hope is always there. Even when we can't see it, even when we can't feel it, it's there. It's always there. So if you're going through something and you just feel like you can't see, that it's just dark, that there's no possible way out, there is. Hope is always here. So with that, I think it's time to put this onion back in the bin until we talk again. I hope you have a truly awesome day. See you soon, guys.